There are mornings when you open your eyes, and something inside you refuses to rise with the world. Not sadness, not laziness, just a quiet heaviness, a pull downward, as if your soul is asking for a moment you've forgotten how to give it. You lie there, feeling the weight in your chest before you even try to move. A weight that has nothing to do with sleep and everything to do with the life you've been carrying. A life where you've been strong for too long, where you've held the center for everyone but yourself, where you've poured so much of your energy outward that you no longer remember what it feels like to belong to your own body. And in that stillness, that strange, unmoving morning light, something whispers from the very bottom of your being. Stay. Not because you're weak, not because you're giving up, but because a deeper part of you is finally stepping forward after years of being pushed aside. Carl Jung once wrote that the soul withdraws its energy when it can no longer pretend. And sometimes the first place you feel that withdrawal is in your bones, your breath, the way your body quietly says, "I cannot live the old way anymore." Not failing. Something inside you is shifting, rearranging, preparing to lead you somewhere more honest. And the desire to lie down, to not rise, not yet, may be the first sign that the woman you've been is giving way to the woman you are becoming. When the body speaks before the mind understands, there is a certain kind of mourning that doesn't come with panic or urgency, but with a strange hush. A morning where you wake up, look at the ceiling, and feel your entire body hesitate, as if some invisible thread inside you has loosened overnight. For our arms are heavy, your thoughts are soft and far away. Even the air feels different, like it's asking you to move slower than the world expects you to. Most women don't talk about these mornings, especially women who have been strong for decades. Women who have held families, survived losses, stitched themselves back together after heartbreaks no one else ever saw. Women like you, you're used to rising, you're used to pushing through. You're used to being the responsible one, the steady one, the one who keeps moving even with wounds that never fully healed. So when your body suddenly says, "Not today," feel faint, or shameful, or like you're somehow failing at a life you've already worked so hard to keep together. But there is a truth that Carl Jung understood, a truth most of us are never taught. Bishops are actually stops because the soul has reached a depth of truth the mind hasn't caught up with yet. And it speaks the only way it knows how, by taking away your ability to perform the life that no longer matches who you are becoming. You may not realize it, but this heaviness, this magnetic pull back into stillness, often comes at the very moment when you've outgrown a chapter that you're still trying to live inside of. It happens when you've been carrying the wrong expectations, the wrong pace, the wrong identity, the wrong silence. It happens when you haven't allowed yourself to grieve things you told yourself you should be over by now. It happens when you've been too strong for too long. It happens when the woman inside you, the real one, the one beneath the duties and the masks, finally whispers, "I'm tired of being ignored. I need you to hear me now." And because you wouldn't stop for her, she moves through the body instead. The heaviness isn't here to punish you. It's here to call you home. You can feel this, can't you? That the tiredness isn't random. That something deeper is shifting in the shadows of your inner life. Maybe your old ways of coping don't work anymore. Maybe the things you used to tolerate now exhaust you instantly, Maybe you've begun to sense that a version of you, the caretaker, the peacekeeper, the one who has held everything together, is quietly dissolving. And dissolution always feels like fatigue before it feels like rebirth. Jung believed the soul is like a wild animal. Uffling, it retreats when life becomes too loud, too dishonest, too far from the truth of who you are. It hides in the quietest part of you and waits for you to stop pretending. That morning heaviness, the one that makes you want to lie there and breathe for just a moment longer, is the soul placing its hand on your chest, gently saying, "Blockchain, slow down. Look at what your life has become. Look at what you've lost. Look at what you no longer want to carry." Some break down at this stage. Others become numb. Most simply keep going until the body says, "No more." But you're finally noticing. You're finally feeling the truth your soul has been quietly arranging inside you. You are not collapsing. You are being interrupted by your own inner wisdom, interrupted by the part of you that refuses to let you live one more day abandoning yourself, interrupted by the deeper woman you are growing into, the woman who is tired of surviving and is ready to start living. This is the doorway, the pause before the turning, the winter before any honest spring. And in this stillness, this strange desire to lie down, you are about to learn what your soul has been trying to tell you all along. The quiet war between your outer life and your inner truth. There comes a point in a woman's life, usually somewhere after her mid-30s, often closer to her 40s, when the world she has built with her hands begins to crack quietly beneath the world she has been carrying in her heart. It rarely happens with thunder. It rarely happens with a dramatic collapse. Most of the time, it begins like this: a get up. An evening where you suddenly feel like a stranger in your own home, where your smile feels borrowed. A moment of silence where something inside you sighs, "I can't keep doing this." Jung believed that this is the moment when the outer life and the inner truth collide for the first time, but unmistakably. It is the quietest war a woman ever fights, the war between the life she promised everyone else she would maintain and the life her soul has been waiting decades to finally live. No one talks about this war, especially not women who have spent their whole lives being dependable, steady, calm, the emotional anchor for everyone around them. Women who were told, "Don't be selfish, don't be difficult, don't fall apart, don't ask for too much." Who learned far too young how to silence the parts of themselves that wanted more depth, more honesty, more tenderness, more truth. But the soul has patience. It waits. It watches. And one day, without warning, it begins to rise. Not with anger, not with rebellion, but with something far more powerful, a refusal. A refusal to keep living only on the surface. A refusal to keep smiling through what hurts. A refusal to keep giving when you are empty. A refusal to keep pretending you don't feel what you feel. And that refusal shows up first as tiredness. The kind of tiredness you can't explain. The kind that doesn't go away no matter how early you sleep or how long you rest. The kind that clings to your bones because it is not physical. It is existential, reinforced. It is the tiredness of a woman who has outgrown her own life. Jung called this the moment when the unconscious withdraws its consent. You can force your body, you can force your schedule, you can force your smile, but you cannot force your soul to power a life that dishonors it. And so the war begins. Not with weapons, but with whispers. Not with explosions, but with subtle fractures. You may notice that the things you used to tolerate now feel unbearable. Bracelets that once seemed harmless now feel draining. The roles you played so effortlessly now feel tight, suffocating, too small for the woman you are becoming. Neurological things. You lose interest in the routines that once kept you steady. Your body slows down even when your mind screams, "Hurry!" Ubiquitous. This is the soul's rebellion, gentle but absolute. You're not breaking down, you're breaking through. You see, the outer life is everything you built to survive. It's the responsibilities, the roles, the expectations, the architecture of who you were supposed to be. But the inner truth, that is who you actually are. And the more those two worlds drift apart, the heavier you feel. Women in their 30s, 40s, 50s often carry this split more than anyone else, because they've lived long enough to build entire lives out of duty, and long enough to sense when those lives no longer reflect their deepest truth. Something inside you knows, submerged, it always has. It knows the conversations where you shrink yourself to keep the peace. It knows the silence you swallow to avoid disappointing others. It knows the dreams you set aside because life demanded something more practical. Self you left behind somewhere between motherhood, heartbreak, and survival. And now, after years of being patient, that inner truth is rising back to the surface. It doesn't rise with weariness. This is no longer you, and you cannot carry this version of your life one more step forward. The quiet war is not about destruction. It's about revelation. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who you needed to become. It's about feeling your own boundaries again after decades of bending. It's about hearing your soul speak after years of drowning in noise. This war is not a crisis. It's a transition. It's the moment where your inner and outer worlds finally collide, because they can no longer live separate lives. And the fatigue, the desire to lie down and not move, is simply the place where these two worlds meet. A pause, a threshold, penetration between who you were and who you are finally becoming. When the soul withdraws its energy, the psychology of becoming. There is a moment, quiet, almost imperceptible at first, when your soul begins to take its energy back. Not out of anger, not out of punishment, but out of a deep, instinctive knowing that you are living a life that no longer holds the shape of who you truly are. Jung wrote that the psyche withdraws from anything untrue, and that this withdrawal is not a collapse, but a preparation. Kang don't notice it right away. It begins subtly. Gorse soft disconnection from things that once felt familiar, a growing distance from routines that used to keep you anchored, a strange sense that the world around you has become slightly out of focus. You move through your day, but something within you is no longer participating. You show up, but not fully. You speak, but with half your voice. You laugh, but the joy doesn't echo inside your chest the way it once did. It feels as if an invisible curtain has fallen between you and the life you've been living, and you can't decide if it's frightening or liberating. For women who have lived decades carrying other people's needs, this withdrawal often feels like betrayal. You think you're failing. You think you're becoming cold, detached, distant. Your soul isn't abandoning your life. It's calling you back to yourself. There is a version of you, the one hidden beneath years of coping, stretching, accommodating, that finally senses an opening. A crack in the old structure, a doorway into a new one. And so it begins gathering energy. It stops investing in conversations where you disappear. It stops pouring into dynamics where you're only valued for your strength, never your softness. It stops fueling identities you've outgrown, the responsible one, the fixer, the emotional anchor, the woman who carries more than her fair share because she can handle it. Until may feel guilty. You may feel like you're withdrawing from the people who rely on you. But the truth is simpler and far more sacred. You are not withdrawing from them. You are withdrawing from the version of yourself that required self-abandonment to survive. Every rebirth begins with a retreat. Just like winter pulls sap from the branches so the tree can protect its core, your soul pulls its energy back from the world so it can protect your essence. This is why you feel tired. Not the tiredness sleep can fix, but the tiredness that whispers, "I have carried too much for too long." This is why your days feel foggy, why your emotions feel muted, why your intuition feels louder but harder to interpret. Flashlight, it is the psyche reorganizing itself, gathering its pieces, reclaiming its truth, quietly building the next version of you from the inside out. And becoming, real becoming, is always an inward descent before it is an outward rise. Jung called this a psychic winter. But for a woman, it feels more intimate than that, ending even though nothing in your life has visibly changed. It feels like standing in your kitchen at night and suddenly realizing how far you've drifted from your own heart. It feels like sitting in your car after work and not recognizing the woman staring back at you in the rearview mirror. It feels like being pressed gently, insistently back into yourself. And the more the soul withdraws from what is false, the more you feel the uncomfortable truth of what is real. You begin noticing the small betrayals, the ones you've grown accustomed to forgiving. You begin feeling the ache of silences you've endured to keep the peace. You begin sensing the cost of all the ways you've asked your body to carry what your mouth was never allowed to say. None of this is a mistake. None of this is a crisis. This is the beginning, pleasures, not of the end of your life, but of the end of a life that no longer deserves you. When the soul withdraws its energy, it is choosing you. It is protecting you. It is whispering, "You cannot grow if I keep feeding what is breaking you." And so, it starves your old patterns. It numbs the roles that exhausted you. It dims your interest in what drained you. It lets the old self loosen, dissolve, fall away. And even though you may not feel it yet, something else begins quietly unfolding beneath the tiredness. A new center, a new voice, a new woman. She is not here yet, not fully. Patience, but she is forming. The tiredness is her doorway. The withdrawal is her clearing. The numbness is the soil being prepared for her roots. You are not disappearing. You are reassembling. And soon, when the soul decides you are ready, you will rise again. Not into the life you had, but into the life that is finally yours. The body as the messenger. How truth speaks through fatigue. There is a particular kind of tiredness that doesn't live in your muscles or your bones, but somewhere deeper, in the space behind your ribs, in the quiet place where you carry everything you never say out loud. It comes softly, without warning, like a hand resting on your shoulder from the inside. Some women describe it as heaviness, others as fog, others as the feeling of moving through water, each step slower than the last. Jung understood something most of us forget. When the body speaks through fatigue, it is not asking for rest. It is asking for truth. You may feel it while washing the dishes, your hands doing the familiar motions, while your mind goes strangely blank. You may feel it driving home from work, staring at the red lights ahead, as if they're the only thing holding you together. You may feel it in the morning, lying awake while the world asks you to get up. But something in you whispers, "Not yet. I need a moment." This is not failure. This is conversation. The body is speaking because the soul has run out of other ways to reach you. Fiberglass. For years, maybe decades, you pushed yourself beyond your own thresholds. You hid your disappointments, kindness. You buried your grief. Windshield tolerated relationships that drained you because your heart was trained to hold more than it should. You smiled through loneliness. You carried the weight of entire homes on shoulders that were never allowed to relax. A woman can only do that for so long before the body begins to intervene. Fatigue becomes the language of the unspoken. Slowness becomes the protest of the soul. The heavier limbs becomes a truth rising from the places you've refused to look. The body does not lie, and it refuses to let you lie to yourself. That are days when you feel yourself sagging as if under an invisible burden, and perhaps it is invisible, but it is not unreal. Question. It is the accumulation of every "I'm fine" you've ever said. Every boundary you didn't set. Every moment you needed comfort, but offered it instead. Every hour of pretending to be stronger than you felt. Every season of tending to everyone else's emotional weather while ignoring your own. Jung believed that the psyche never punishes, it only tries to rebalance. And when the truth becomes too heavy for the soul to carry alone, the body takes over. This is why it feels like your energy is disappearing. It isn't fading, it's being redirected, pulled inward, pulled toward something unfinished, pulled toward the truth you've been avoiding, while calling it busy, tired, fine, I just need a break. Physicist, the fatigue doesn't let you escape. It anchors you. It slows you until you can no longer outrun what you feel. This is not illness of the flesh. It is honesty of the spirit. Sometimes the body or life too small for the woman you have quietly become. Sometimes the tiredness shows up in the middle of a conversation that no longer feels aligned with your heart. The words around you falling flat, draining you more with every passing minute. Sometimes it appears after moments of pretending you're happy, pretending you're okay, pretending you don't feel the shift your soul has already accepted. The body senses the cost before the mind admits it. It slows you down so you can hear the truth, a truth like, you are done carrying what isn't yours. You are done shrinking yourself to keep the peace. You are done living a life that doesn't reflect your inner world. You are done abandoning the woman you were born to be. The fatigue is not a block, it is guidance. It turns you toward yourself. It softens your defenses. It brings you back into your own skin after years of living outside of it. And in that slowing, that quiet, heavy stillness, something miraculous happens. You begin to feel again, not all at once, not dramatically, kiss, but gently, like warmth returning to a part of the body that has been numb. This is what the body knows before the mind understands. Kissed, you are entering the beginning of your becoming, and the woman you are growing into cannot be built on exhaustion, pretending, or silence. She can only be built on truth. The inner winter, why your soul pulls you into darkness before it leads you back to light. Plus, there comes a season in every woman's inner life when the world around her remains the same routines, the same conversations, the same faces, but something inside begins to dim, cool, and quiet. Not because she is losing herself, but because she is finding a deeper version of her that cannot grow in the light she once lived in. Jung often wrote about the necessity of descent, the way the psyche withdraws into its own darkness, not as an ending, but as a preparation. And for women, this descent rarely looks dramatic. It looks like tiredness, blindness. It looks like silence. It looks like lying awake at night, sensing a shift you cannot name. It looks like winter. Not the winter of the weather, but the winter of the soul, the kind where everything inside you seems to be slowing, fading, falling away. Begin to notice that the things that once kept you warm no longer comfort you. Knives you feel a distance growing between who you are and who you've been pretending to be. You feel a kind of emotional coldness, not numbness exactly, but a soft detachment, as if your spirit has stepped back from the outer world and is standing quietly in the doorway, watching. And though it may frighten you, this darkness is not here to swallow you. It is here to shape you. Because every transformation begins with a season of retreat. Every rebirth begins with a time of quiet. Every woman who becomes more than she once was must first pass through a place where everything she thought she needed is taken out of her hands, so she can learn what has been hers all along. In nature, winter is not death. Pancakes. It is conservation. It is gathering. It is the long, slow inhale before the exhale of spring. The earth looks still, but beneath the surface, life is rearranging itself, strengthening what must endure, releasing what can no longer sustain the seasons ahead. Your soul does the same. Autistic, you feel, is not emptiness. It is incubation. It is the place where old identities dissolve. The caretaker, the pleaser, the strong one, the woman who carried too much. So that you can finally meet the woman who has been waiting beneath all of that weight. Winter strips everything down to the essential. Across the noise you've used to distract yourself. It strips away the people who never truly saw you. It strips away the rhythms you followed simply because they were expected of you. It strips away the parts of your personality built from survival rather than truth. It leaves you with only yourself. And that is what feels like darkness. Standing there with the rawness of your own truth, without the armor, without the roles, without the stories that once made you feel safe. But this darkness is sacred. It is not punishment. It is permission. Permissible to rest. Permission to feel. Permission to let go of what you've been forcing. Permission to stop explaining yourself. Permission to stop pretending. Permission to stop running from the woman you've been becoming quietly, patiently, in the background of your life. This inner winter is the soul's way of bringing you back to your roots. It pulls you into the quiet so that you can hear what you've ignored. It pulls you into the stillness so that you can feel what you've buried. It pulls you into the dark so that the light you rise with is your own, not the borrowed, diluted light you once wore to make others comfortable. You may feel lost. You may feel alone. You may feel like you've stepped into a place without a map. But something ancient in you knows this season. Women have been entering inner winters since the beginning of time, whenever their souls sensed that a new self was forming beneath the surface. What you are feeling now is not the end of your path. It is the clearing of it. The darkness is not closing in on you. It is creating space around you, space where the old can fall away without apology, and the new can begin to breathe. And when the time is right, when your spirit has gathered enough truth, and your bones have rested long enough, and your heart has remembered its own voice, you will feel something inside you thaw. A slow warmth, a returning pulse, a quiet but certain yes. And when that moment comes, the woman who rises will not be the one who entered this winter, flooring. She will be deeper, softer, wiser, truer, less willing to abandon herself, less willing to carry what isn't hers, less willing to dim her light for rooms that never deserved her brilliance. Your inner winter is not the darkness before the end. It is the darkness before the beginning. And even now, uffling, in the quiet, in the tiredness, in the shadows, you are already becoming the woman you were always meant to be. When the old self begins to fall away, the quiet death before rebirth, there comes a moment in a woman's inner journey, subtle, almost imperceptible, when she senses that something inside her is no longer who it once was. Not because she made a decision, not because she forced a change, but because some deeper intelligence within her has already begun to let go. It is a strange experience, this quiet death of the old self. Sometimes it feels like losing interest in conversations that once felt easy. Sometimes it feels like standing in the middle of your own life and suddenly realizing that the script no longer fits your mouth. Sometimes it feels like watching yourself from a distance, a woman trying to keep up with roles that no longer have a heartbeat. Jung believed that all transformation begins with dissolution, that the structures of the old personality must fall apart before anything new can be formed. For women, this dissolution is rarely dramatic. It is delicate. Kang, it is slow. It is intimate. Psychologist. It begins with exhaustion, then silence, then a soft unraveling. You may catch glimpses of it in the mirror. That moment when your eyes look older, not from age, but from carrying truths you've never spoken. You may feel it in the small decisions you can no longer make from habit. You may sense it in the ache that rises when you try to force yourself into old routines. This is the psyche letting go, peeling away layers that were only ever meant to be temporary. The one who adjusted, accommodated, endured, held everything together, begins to slip quietly into the background. Not as a failure, not as a loss, but as a completion. She brought you through many seasons. She survived storms you never thought you'd make it through. She carried you when you were too young to know your own strength, too wounded to walk alone, too afraid to ask for something different. She is not disappearing, she is being released. And release always feels like grief. There is a mourning that comes with shedding an old self, even if that self was born from pain, even if she was built from survival rather than love, even if you know somewhere deep inside that you cannot carry her into the next chapter. Her leaving still hurts because she held you, because she protected you, because she was the part of you that learned to stay silent, to be strong, to endure, when nobody else noticed your trembling hands. And loosens her grip, something inside you loosens too. You find yourself crying for no reason. You find yourself exhausted after doing nothing. You find yourself longing for things you can't yet name. A gentler life, a slower life, a life where you no longer have to hold yourself so tightly. This is not depression. This is decomposition. The old identity breaking down so the new one can breathe. Jung called it enantiodromia, the turning of one thing into its opposite. The woman who always held herself together begins to unravel. The woman who was always sure begins to question. The woman who was always strong begins to soften. The woman who was always silent begins to hear her own voice rising from the inside. Blindness. This is the death before rebirth. It is not conspiring. It is raw. It is confusing. It is holy. You may feel like you are losing control, but it is the old control that is dissolving, not you. You may feel like you are falling apart, but it is the old structures that are breaking, not your essence. You may feel like you are disappearing, but it is the old persona fading, making space for the woman waiting underneath. The soul never destroys what is real. It only dismantles what is no longer true. And so the old self falls away piece by piece. The smile you gave out of politeness, blackjack you showed out of obligation, the silence you carried out of fear, the boundaries you never dared to set, the parts of you that bent until they broke. All of them begin to die their quiet death. And as they do, something unexplainable begins to rise. A softness you had forgotten, a wildness you had buried, a truth you had muted, a longing you had silenced, a voice, your voice, trembling at first but unmistakably alive. Our becoming does not need the masks. Expelled, she does not need the applause. She does not need the approval. She does not need the versions of yourself you crafted to survive environments that never nourished you. Rebuilt is not a single moment. It is a slow unfurling. Blackberry. It is the quiet realization that you can no longer live at war with yourself. It is the gentle courage to stop abandoning your own heart. It is the soft return to a truth you left behind long ago. She is coming, the new woman, the one the old life could never hold. Arrival begins with this, the death of the version of you that was never meant to last. You are not ending. Blackjack, you are becoming. And every piece of you that falls away is making room for the woman you were always meant to be. The soft emergence of the new self. Learning to rise without rushing. Biking addiction. There comes a moment, usually long after the unraveling, long after the heaviness, long after the quiet death of an old version of you, when something inside begins to stir again. Not loudly, not with the old urgency, but with a softness so delicate you almost miss it if you aren't paying attention. Bills is the faintest whisper of energy in your chest, the smallest desire to breathe a little deeper, the gentle sense that you might, someday soon, want something more than just surviving. This is the beginning of emergence, and emergence, as Jung understood it, never happens through force. It never rushes. It never demands. Protagonists, like a seed breaking open underground, long before anyone sees the green. For a woman who has spent decades pushing herself, rushing, performing, holding everything together, this soft rising can feel unfamiliar, almost suspicious. You may wonder, is this real? Am I ready? Do I trust this feeling? Will it disappear if I move too quickly? But emergence does not ask you to leap. It asks you to notice. Notice the morning when getting out of bed doesn't feel impossible. Notice the moment when a spark of curiosity returns. Notice the breath that feels a little lighter than the day before. Notice the sudden tenderness toward yourself, a tenderness you didn't know you were capable of. This is how the new self arrives, quietly, patiently, like a shy animal stepping out of the woods, only when the world feels safe again. You do not call her forth. You do not pull her out by her wrist. You simply create enough inner stillness that she can choose to come forward. And she will. Because the woman you are becoming has been waiting for this moment. Not the moment when you rush back into the world, but the moment when you meet yourself gently after years of being too hard on your own heart. Apologize is not the same as going back to normal. There is no going back. The old strength, the old coping, the old speed, they belong to another lifetime. You don't want to return to who you were. You want to become who you were meant to be. And that becoming happens slowly. You may feel yourself experimenting with more courage than before. You may realize that silence no longer scares you. You may find yourself craving things that nourish you instead of things that numb you. You may feel your intuition returning, like a long-lost friend tapping your shoulder saying, "I'm here again. I never left. I just needed you to slow down enough to hear me." This is the new self, not polished, not complete, not certain, but undeniably alive. She rises in small ways. She rises in quiet ways. She rises without your permission because she is you. And she does not want you to hurry. She wants you to savor. She wants you to breathe. She wants you to trust that a softer way of living is not weakness, it is wisdom. After so many years of rushing through your pain, pushing through your exhaustion, performing through your heartbreak, your emergence must be gentle. You have earned softness. You have earned slowness. You have earned the right to take your time. This rising is not a comeback, it is a rebirth. And rebirth has no timeline. You feel new, and mornings when you feel tired again. There will be days when your heart opens easily, and days when it shuts itself to protect what is still tender. There will be moments when the old life tries to pull you back, but you will feel, deep in your bones, that you cannot fit into anything you have outgrown. This is how you know you are emerging. The world no longer decides who you are. Your soul does. You are rising, but not fast. You are awakening, but not loudly. You are becoming, but not all at once. And in this slow becoming, you discover something miraculous. The new self doesn't need you to be ready. She just needs you to be willing to move at the pace of truth. willing to honor what is tender, willing to trust what is emerging, willing to follow the warmth wherever it appears, even if it's only a flicker at first. This is the soft emergence, not a transformation you perform for the world, but a transformation you allow within yourself. You rise, not because you force yourself to, but because you are finally becoming a woman who no longer needs to abandon her own soul to survive. This is your new beginning, and even though it is gentle, it is powerful, because power that grows slowly endures. A moment of remembering. Before you walk any further, before you rise into the next version of yourself, there is something your soul wants you to feel. Not understand, not analyze, but feel. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself exactly as you are today. Not the woman you were 10 years ago, not the woman others needed you to be, not the woman you performed in order to survive. Kept just you, in this moment, in this body, with this breath. Capitalists, how much has shifted within you, without making a sound. There are truths you can no longer unhear. There are boundaries you can no longer cross. There are dreams you can no longer bury. There is a tiredness you can no longer ignore. There is a softness you can finally admit you want. You are changing, quietly. And quiet change is still change. This in-between space you're standing in, not fully who you were, not yet who you're becoming, is not a void. It is a womb, a psychic womb, holding you in the darkness the way soil holds a seed before it dares to rise. Here, nothing is demanded of you. Here, you don't have to be strong. Here, you don't have to explain what is happening inside you. Here, you don't have to heal quickly, beautifully, or in a straight line. You only have to breathe. Perhaps you feel alone in this transition, but you aren't. Every woman who has ever awakened to her own truth, bribed past loosens its chamber, where the ingentle patience. Listen. There is a subtle shifting beneath your ribs, a pulse, a warmth, a knowing. You are becoming is not asking you for perfection. She is asking you for presence. She is asking you to trust the pauses, to honor the slowness, to stop rushing your rebirth, to stop apologizing for needing space. Abolish shrinking yourself to fit the life you've outgrown. She is asking you to stay with yourself in this quiet moment where everything inside you knows something sacred is unfolding. Sometimes healing is not a breakthrough. Sometimes healing is the gentle realization that you no longer need to abandon yourself to be loved. Sometimes becoming begins not with action, but with a long exhale and the whisper, I'm allowed to be here, flattened to feel this way. I'm allowed to grow on my own timeline. This interlude, this breath, is your reminder that you are not behind. You are ripe and be rushed. When you are ready, the next chapter will unfold beneath your feet, profitability that has been waiting for years to finally carry you home. Until then, bishops rest in this sacred pause. Let the silence hold you. Let the darkness cradle you. Let the becoming unfurl in its own time. That woman you are growing into is already on her way. Learning to live. From the new center, reclaiming your life, one honest choice at a time. Unleashed. There is a moment after the unraveling after the inner winter, after the soft emergence, when you begin to sense something new forming at the center of your being. Not a sudden transformation, not a loud awakening, but a quiet, steady pulse, as if your soul has finally found a rhythm that belongs only to you. It feels strange at first, moving through life guided not by obligation, fear, or habit, but by a deeper inner truth that has waited years for you to slow down enough to hear it. This new center is delicate, like a flame protected between your palms. It doesn't push. It doesn't demand. It simply hums with a presence you didn't know you were missing. Punished. That whispers, live from here now. Not from who you were. Not from who they needed you to be. From here. Learning to live from this new center is not a single choice. It is a series of quiet, almost invisible choices made throughout your day. Each one a small act of devotion to the woman you are becoming. Before noticing the truth inside your body again, the gentle yes, the quiet no, the tightening in your chest that tells you when you are abandoning yourself, the warmth in your belly that tells you when you are aligned. Jung believed that the psyche reorganizes itself around a new center once the false self dissolves. But he never wrote about how tender that reorganization feels for a woman, how her voice comes back in whispers before it ever returns in full volume. You may find yourself pausing more. You may find yourself thinking before saying yes. You may find yourself choosing silence instead of explaining yourself to people who never really listened. You may find yourself protecting your mornings, your nights, your softness. These are not small changes. These are tectonic shifts. Because for years, maybe your entire adult life, you moved through the world as if you belonged to everyone but yourself. You gave from an empty cup and called it love. You stayed when you were breaking and called it loyalty. You silenced your intuition and called it maturity. You carried the emotional weight of entire rooms and called it strength. But now, something in you refuses to keep living that way, not out of anger, but out of remembering. You are remembering what it feels like to choose yourself without guilt, to rest without apology, to speak without shrinking, to exist without performing. This is what it means to recall your life, one honest choice at a choices. Will feel obvious. Other days, they will feel terrifying, because they require you to step out of old patterns, old loyalties, old versions of yourself that the world grew comfortable with. You might disappoint people. You might unsettle dynamics that relied on your silence. You might lose relationships that could only survive when you abandoned yourself. But you will not lose yourself again. Not this time. Because the woman you are now, the woman rising from her new center, cannot go back to betraying her own soul just to be accepted. She knows too much. She feels too much. She has returned too far into herself to ever leave that sacred ground again. And so you make these choices gently, one at a time. You choose the conversations where your spirit feels seen. You choose the environments where your nervous system can breathe. You choose the people who speak to the deepest parts of you, not the most convenient. You choose rest when your body whispers for it. You choose boundaries when your heart trembles but knows the truth. You choose the life that feels like home, not the one that looks good from the outside. None of these choices are dramatic, but each one rewire something inside you, preferring your life closer to your soul. Each one returns you to yourself. Each one teaches the world how to treat the woman you finally remembered yourself to be. Unfinished from this new center does not require perfection. It requires presence. It requires honesty. It requires a willingness to stop running away from your deepest knowing. And slowly, very slowly, you begin to trust this center. You begin to let it guide you. You begin to realize that your life no longer needs to be built on effort, but on alignment. From this true center, the more the old life feels impossibly far away, like a story you once had to tell in order to survive, but no longer need in order to live. You may not recognize yourself some days, and that's the point. The woman you are becoming has been waiting for years, decades, lifetimes. Choice, with every honest choice, with every moment you refuse to abandon yourself, you are walking toward her. Not quickly, not perfectly, but truly. This is how a woman reclaims her life. Not in a single leap, clinging, but in the soft, steady unfolding of living from her own center. The center she was never meant to lose. And now, as this chapter closes, blackmail of your own soul settles around you like soft evening light. There is a blessing meant for you. The woman who has learned to rise without rushing, to feel without apologizing, to return to herself without fear. You have walked through your inner winter. You have softened into your unraveling. You have allowed the old self to fall away, condemned to the whispers beneath your exhaustion. You have honored the woman emerging from the center of your chest, and because of that, no longer living a life built from expectation. You are living a life built from truth. May this new beginning feel like breath. Flooring, may your boundaries feel like protection, not distance. May your softness feel like power, not weakness. May the world around you rearrange itself to match the woman you are becoming. And when you forget, because you will, may you return to this moment, to this truth, to this version of yourself who is learning, finally, beautifully, clang to her own life. Caregivers, you are not starting over. You are starting true. And if something in this journey touched a place in you that has been waiting to be seen, I would love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, which part of your becoming are you standing in right now? Flooring might be exactly what another woman needs to find her way home. And if this space feels like a homecoming, a place where your soul can breathe a little deeper, I invite you to stay close. Willingness to the channel, Soarline, so you don't miss the next chapter of your inner journey. Share this video with a woman you love, a sister of your heart who is quietly holding her own winter inside her chest. You never know. Your sharing might be the light she needs in her darkest season. Thank you for walking this path with me. Until next time, be gentle with your becoming. You are growing into a woman your past self would be proud to meet.